Hey, welcome back to Mind, Body, Soul Evolution. I'm Gemma, and for this next video, I'm going to be going into an interesting topic, divine intervention. And I'm being asked to share three examples from my own path, my own journey with you. And so that's what I'm going to do on this video. But first, before I get into that, I'm going to give a quick shout out and thank you to someone whose work and connection has come to mean a great deal to me. Frankly, I am feeling very blessed to have had the opportunity to have worked with him and to have gotten acquainted with his work. Okay, so, but yeah, let me show you something. I'll share this here. This is it's a postcard. I can't show you the other side. It has private information, but this is a postcard with this hand-drawn mandala, which was, it's beautiful. It's amazing. I love it. But yeah, it's a hand-drawn mandala drawn by none other than Dr. Henry Reed. And I've mentioned Dr. Henry Reed in previous videos, but if you're not familiar with him, he is and has been for over 20 years now, has been the director for psychic development programs at Edgar Cayce's ARE, Association for Research and Enlightenment, and the Edgar Cayce Institute for Intuitive Studies. And he's done a ton of incredible, phenomenal work, written a lot of books and all this sort of stuff with Edgar Cayce's work too. But his mandalas, and I'll show this one again, he actually has like a whole series, which, I mean, I don't want to mess the information up, but I know he at one point did designed and painted a mandala a day for like 7 or 8 years. I don't want to misquote. I don't want to say the wrong thing, but like 7 or 8 years. Every day he designed and drew a beautiful mandala, which are, they're all encoded with these beautiful light codes in the sacred geometry and the colors representative of the chakras and the different energy that they emit. I'll put a link in the video about actually I'm probably going to end up putting links to a lot of things or several things in this video, but anyway, this is one of his beautiful, gorgeous energy emanating mandalas, and I'm very grateful to and blessed to have received it. And so I wanted to say thank you, Dr. Henry Reed, and also because, and that's kind of part and parcel with the announcement I wanted to make with this thank you, is that he has asked me to, I already did work with him on one of his phenomenal, cutting edge new projects called the Dream Helper Circle. Okay. And I did administrate a Dream Helper Circle for Dr. Henry Reed this past February 2019, and I cannot emphasize enough how amazing I feel this work to be, how moving and the potential it has to really create change. You know why? I'll tell you why. Because, just really briefly, but I'll include a link to so that you can check out, if you're interested in more information about what a Dream Helper Circle is. But it is one of Dr. Henry Reed's babies, one of his newest projects, in which basically a group of people come together and for over a period of 7 days, more, it turns out to be more like 8, but they set they synchronize the setting of an intent or an intention to open up, to allow spirit to come through and bring a message forth that is of greatest applicability or importance or whatever meaning, deepest meaning for a randomly chosen focus person. And it's unbelievable the messages that come through. It's incredible. It's like, you know, they're so appropriate and so timely for the person that it's mind blowing, you know. And I myself, you know, as the administrator of the circle, back in February, I myself had a moving experience in which, you know, as the administrator, you know, you're not dreaming, you're kind of, you know, synthesizing and collecting and the information and putting it together in a way that makes sense for others to digest and revise, you know, on a day-to-day basis. But basically, I myself had an experience running the circle in which I had a dream in which Manly P. Hall came to me in a dream, and he had been coming for over a year. I didn't know who he was. And the very next day, as I'm administrating the circle, I have this dream. Manly P. Hall comes in, it comes to talk to me. And the next day, Dr. Henry Reed sends us, the administrators, an article from or a copy of the newest online version of the Edgar Casey ARE's Venture Inward magazine. And right there, bam, in one of the articles is a picture of Manly P. Hall of his younger self, which was the first time I had seen a photo of his younger self. I usually had always seen photos of him as an older guy, you know, and like anyway, so and that's how he was coming to me in his dreams, was as his younger self. So it was like it helped me connect the dots, and that was my little synchronistic experience with running the Dream Helper Circle for Dr. Henry Reed, which was like that alone was mind blowing to me, because it helped me connect the dots as to who this one of my main guides was, who was trying to get, you know, poke my attention, you know, get my attention. And that's how these things happen, okay? So I thought it was worth sharing that as well. But anyway, yeah, Dr. Henry Reed's work. And no, I don't get any money for sharing with you about his mandalas or, you know, I'm not getting any money for the Dream Helper Circle information right now. You know, maybe down the future, who knows, if I'm really heavily involved with it, who knows. But right now, you know, I'm just doing the best I can to share the info itself, because it's that meaningful, I believe. Okay, because let's put it this way: that I described, what happens in that Dream Helper Circle, is essentially an experiential way for people from all walks of life, even if they're not seasoned intuitives or psychic mediums such as myself, you know, they're even if they're you know, everyday Joes and Janes, you know, like people who do not, you know, drop into flow states on a regular basis, or access, you know, or act as channels, you know, even for people who've never had these sorts of experiences, imagine how moving it is to not just read the information or hear it told or presented in a workshop, but rather, you know, it's a whole new level that opens up for people when the knowledge is acquired experientially. Okay, and there's a, you know, there's a huge difference between uh, like I said, reading about it, talking about it, and experiencing it, which is what the Dream Helper Circle opens up for participants, to have this amazing experience with spirit in a natural, easy, simple way through dreams. Anyway, so more on that. I'll put a link in the description, but you know, more on that to come, I'm sure. in other videos, because yes, I am very stoked, very excited to be working with Dr. Henry Reed on more Dream Helper Circle projects. Absolutely. So that's that. Now, to get back into the topic for this video, the intended topic, divine intervention. Let's get into that, because I'm going to be honest, I'm going to be transparent here. I have been asked to share about these divine interventions, and as the same way I've been asked and called to step up and share about the other mystical experiences and crazy synchronicities that keep unfolding on my journey, on my path, ever since I can remember, okay, frankly. But it's not easy, guys. It's really not easy. I mean, I know nowadays, I hear so many people talking about that they see and or work with angels and this, that, and other beings, and you know, that's great. That's beautiful. But for some people, I can say for myself, I can I can speak for myself in terms of my experience, and share about how challenging, how superbly challenging it has been on my path. Because in fact, like some of these experiences I've actually stayed in the closet about. I've remained quiet about for years, for fear of being thought of as crazy. Okay, and I know as soon as I shared about them, most people would just label you as nuts, and that's that, and it's like but the time has come. The time has come for myself, for sure. I mean, I can only speak for myself, but for all of us to step up about these experiences and share about them more and more, so that we can shine more light on them, and see uh, just how common they are. Because honestly, I think divine intervention and orchestration occurs a lot more commonly and frequently than a lot of people realize. Honestly, yeah. So anyway, let me jump into my examples, my experiences. There are three that I wanted to share, that I'm being asked to share about, and again, I've shared about previous crazy stories of synchronicity through the in my writings, through like you can do a search through hashtag Chronicles by Confessions, which I'll also put in the information here of the video. But uh, and you can also check out some of my previous videos. I've shared some of these experiences as well. But okay, so going backwards in time for these three, the first one was, I think it was 2014, I believe it was. But at the time, I was in with my now ex-husband. Yes, no longer. I went through a divorce. I'm no longer married to him. But and that's in a previous video I talked about that too, because that was a whole other um, set of challenges I went through on my path. But anyway, um, yeah. So 2014, I found myself married to this man who was extremely abusive, and I ended up leaving. But um, I, at the time, had, as a stepmother, one of my stepchildren. I was I was very actively involved in both their lives. But um, anyway, one of them, I was a den leader's assistant at his Cub Scout troop, and in his Cub Scout pack. And so the pack was randomly chosen out of the whole country and the whole nation to get a guided tour of the White House, to go visit the White House and be shown inside. And we did. I mean, obviously we didn't we weren't shown the entire White House, but we did. We got a tour of the White House, and at the time, I was just going through the experience and, moving through it and doing what I felt I needed to do on a moment to moment basis, whatever. And I had no idea. I was not on a conscious level. I was not aware that there was divine orchestration at play, and this was orchestrated through a series of events for me to specifically to go visit the White House at around that time. So, and it was for divine, energetic related reasons that it was orchestrated that way for me to visit the White House. But which again, it's not something I want to get into in this video, but that's a whole, that could be, I mean, the explanation of that could really be involved. But anyway, so again, at the time I didn't know. I was just doing my thing, doing what I thought I was supposed to do. But later on, it was explained to me by my guides and my angels that it was set up. It was orchestrated that way, and specifically Archangel Michael. There, he's the one who mostly explained this to me. And anyway, so that was that. Then, and that was, like I said, 2014, 2015, somewhere around there. And going back to the previous one, the one before, after that, I'm trying to think. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to think of the year here. I guess it would have been 2000. I mean, 1988 or 89, something along those lines. Yes. Anyhow, I was 16 and I was at a party, and I had this huge crush on this guy who was older than me. I think he was like 18 at the time, or 19 even. I don't know. His name was John West, and no, I don't mind sharing his name because he is an adult. He was an adult when this happened, and whatever. It is what it is, and it was in the papers anyway. So, but basically, John offered to give me a ride home after the party, and of course, I had a crush on him, and I was like, "Oh, twinkle, twinkle, yeah, sure," and he took a detour and cut through these like weird roads through the woods, and I was getting a bit nervous. I was starting to wonder what he was doing, what he was up to, and at some point he pulled over into a little clearing, and we got out of the car. He got out and he was like, "Come on, let's get some fresh air." And I said, "Okay," So we got out of the car, and he invited me to sit on the hood to look up at the sky, and again, I had a crush on him at the time, so I was like, "Oh, twinkle, twinkle, so beautiful, so, oh, he might kiss me. Oh, anyway, so we were on the hood of the car looking up at the stars, and I actually was really into astronomy, so I thought this was like, oh, my mind and my world was just like, I was in heaven at that moment, Okay, so long story short, John at some point started kissing me, and we started kissing, and I was into it, but at first, but then when he wanted to go take it further, I was not. It was a little, like fast and too fast and more than what I was ready for at that age, at that time. in my life. So I tried to stop him, and that's when he wasn't having that. And he actually proceeded to try to rape me. That's the only way to put it. So he basically, it ended up becoming like a struggle, a physical struggle, and he flipped me over face down onto the hood of the car. I had a mini skirt on, and so it was easy access. And he literally like lifted up my, he bent me over on the hood of the car, stomach down, and was starting to reach under my mini skirt and was starting to undo his pants. And it literally was that close to actual like penetration, uh, to actual rape, when all of a sudden, and I'm not kidding, he had his, pardon my French, he had his dick out, pardon my French, but, and he was about to do his thing. And when all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a police car drove up to us, shining his lights right on the scene, and John jumped off of me like I was on fire. And this cop got out of his car, and he was looking at us. He was looking at John. He was looking at me. John was, probably putting his clothes together, and I was actually in a state of shock, so I'm not entirely sure. I mean, I was like really in shock. And the police officer asked me if I was okay, and what was going on. And I'd love to say that I told him what was going on and reported John at that moment, whatever, but no. I actually said I was okay. I forgot to mention that, right, as was when the cop pulled up and started, shining his lights on us on the scene. John jumped off of me, and as he was doing that, he actually said that if I said anything, he would hurt me. I don't remember his exact words, but he actually threatened to hurt me if I said anything about what had just been going on, what he had just been trying to do. And he did very much. I don't remember the exact words, like I said, but he very much did make that threat. So at that moment, I was sitting there in shock, and when the cop was asking me if I was okay, I was like barely able to formulate words, and I unfortunately said, nope, I'm everything's okay, nothing's going on. And the cop insisted. He asked me a few times, like, "Are you sure? Is everything okay?" And he was looking, and he could see that something was off. And I mean, that's as cops, that's what cops do. And later on, I became a cop, so I can vouch for that. Okay, the gut instinct that cops develop. Not all cops are evil, not all cops are bad, but yes, okay. Um, that's something that I could see on his face at that moment. That cop, he was like putting two and two together and was like, "No, something's off," And "No, are you sure? Are you sure?" He asked like several times, and I repeatedly said, "No, everything's fine." So the cop said, "Okay, fine. Just get out of here. I don't want you guys sticking around over here." And John said, "Okay, officer, no problem. I'll just take her home." And sure, he drove me home, and drove like a friggin' maniac the whole way, scaring the shit out of me, and talking, saying all kinds of like things that were tinged with like violence, on the way. I don't remember exactly what he was saying, but he was pissed off, and he was like muttering under his breath as he drove like a lunatic all the way to my house to drop me off. And anyhow, um, long story short, I actually wrote a one-act play in college about that experience. I called it Cassiopeia because of the constellation that because I was an astronomy dork, and when we were on the car before he tried to rape me. We were looking at the stars, and I was pointing out Cassiopeia to his crazy ass. Anyway, so this guy, as it turns out, I found out later on, had tried to join the army, and while he was in basic training, he was yanked and pulled back to face I believe it was 5 counts of rape. So he apparently had raped other women, other teenage girls, I don't know, whatever. And his defense in court, and I shit you not, was that that he was told that he was a demon, and that he was direct descendant from connected to Satan himself, and that he was sent to this world to impregnate, to spread the seed of Satan, and to impregnate as many women with demon seeds as possible. I wish I was making this up. I wish I was making this up. Yeah. I was lucky in that this police officer, just happened to come out of nowhere and stop the whole thing. He was literal. I mean, he was a hair away from finishing the job. And yeah, and like I said, later on in college, I wrote that one-act play, Cassiopeia, and you know what? That my professor's critique, I got an A minus, because it was a beautiful. I'm a pretty decent writer, and it was a well-written one-act play about that experience that I had, and the professor said it was so well written, and I was just so involved in the story, and I could really feel the characters. But at the very end, the cop coming in out of nowhere, that was just too Deus Ex Machina. Deus Ex Machina, Deus Ex Machina is it's Latin for God at work, or the hand of God at work. It was too miraculous to be believed. So because of that, he gave me an A minus. But anyhow, what he didn't know is that it was a true story. It was actually, something I had experienced. So that was that. And I was shown by my my guides and my angels, and again, primarily Archangel Michael. That cop was activated and sent over through divine intervention to the scene to stop it. And why? Well, there are many. Again, that could be a whole other video to going into why divine intervention occurs in some cases and not in others, and what are the reasons for that, and what could be potential reasons for that, or whatever. I mean, there's a lot. But anyway, so that was there's a lot that could be said about that. Yeah. Okay, so that was that experience, and now moving on to the last one, which is the one I've been kind of like really working up toward. This last experience is going back even further in time to when I was 10 years old, and I was living in Spain at the time. I'm originally from Spain, but I lived also in Australia for 7 years, and there's a whole lot of divine intervention that occurred there throughout all of that movement and that path as well. But anyway, I'll continue to share in more videos. But anyway, yeah. So when I was 10 and I was living in Spain, I was visiting my mother who lived in Torrejon, because she was a civilian working at a U.S. Air Force base, Torrejon, which is outside of Madrid. And she lived close to base, and I lived with my grandparents at the time. But I would go visit her occasionally, and sometimes stay for a few days or a weekend or whatever, here and there. And I was visiting her, and I was outside downstairs at the playground. There was a playground amidst in the middle of these buildings where she lived at. And I had already made a few friends. And my closest friend at the time was this little girl named Natalia. And I had gone to see if Natalia was home, so to ask if she can come out and play, and she wasn't home. So so I just went to the playground, and I was just on a swinging. And as I was uh, as I was there, I don't know, at some point, because the playground sat in right next to the parking lot for the buildings, and I watched Natalia's family's car enter the parking lot. And I got all excited because I was like, "Oh, she's home! I'm gonna ask her if she can come out and play." And so I was on the swing, and I saw them park her and her family and get out of the car, and the dad went and opened the trunk, and they started grabbing grocery bags. Natalia's mother, and this is not an easy story. I'm just anyway. But Natalia's mother and Natalia started walking into the building with the groceries in their hands. And I just sat there and chilled in the swing because I knew that I didn't want to be a pest. I didn't want to pester them while they were trying to put away their groceries. I wanted to give it time and then go over in a little while and ask if she could come out and play. And um, so I'm swinging in a swing and just making time. And I see Natalia's father still at the trunk of the car messing around with the grocery bags, and her brother, who was a little older. He was a teenager. We were 10. Natalia was the same age as myself, and her brother was a little older. Like, I don't know, he may have been like 13, 14, 15. Anyway, so um, at that moment, there was a man in the parking lot who started picking up rocks and throwing them and smashing car windshields with them. And I mean, this guy just started doing that. This random guy. Natalia's father it saw him and started yelling at him, started saying, "Hey, what are you doing? Stop!" And that's when this guy, um, he pulled out a huge hunting knife, and this is an easy, but it is what it is. But he pulled out a hunting knife, and he lunged at Natalia's father and started stabbing him. And I was like, well, oh, what am I gonna say? But Natalia's brother started screaming and lunged toward to help his father. Unfortunately, at that point, the man turned his attention to Natalia's brother and started to stab him. Started stabbing him, and then at that moment, as you can imagine, I was transfigured in my swing. And I was actually, too, it was one of those old timey swings made of metal, where it had like a back. It was like a little mini metal chair hanging by metal chains. I don't know if you remember those, or if you've ever seen those types of swings in old timey playgrounds. Like I said, it looks like a little metallic little chair with a back and a seat. And I was actually sitting backwards with my legs through in between the back and the seat, and I was swinging. And it was right about then, right about when this uh, when this unstable man began to stab Natalia's brother, that my in mid swing, my swing flipped over. I just flipped over, and as I came down, my head went bam onto the ground. I'm not even joking, hard, and I was out like a light. Excuse me, just a second. I was out, and now I don't know exactly how long I was sorry, I don't know exactly how long I was unconscious, but when I came back to, when I regained consciousness, I was still hanging upside down in the swing with my legs still tangled in the seat, in between the back and the seat part, and hanging upside down like that, and it's nervous laughter. Please forgive me. Okay, but so yeah, and I started to like try to loosen and free my legs from the swing, which they came loose, and I fell down to the ground, and I just remember like sitting there for a while trying to rub my legs and trying to like make sense of what had happened, and then it all started coming back, what I had seen right before being knocked out, and and I looked over, and there was nobody there anymore. They were no longer there. I guess emergency responders had already responded and already dealt with the situation. But I later found out that Natalia's father didn't not survive. Natalia's brother was in critical condition for a while in the hospital, but he did pull through and make it. He did survive. Thank God. Thank Goddess. But the I'm not sharing this experience because I'm like, oh look, woe is me, oh look, I'm just, I've gone through this horrific things or whatever. No, no. Uh, there are many reasons why I'm sharing this. But also because, like I said, I'm being shown and guided to. So whatever other reasons that are beyond even my perception are there, and so I'm doing my best to share as best I can. But these are things that I am shown and told many of us go through on our paths, on our journey, especially healers from different modalities. Sometimes this role comes with some steep challenges. And for some people, some of you who may have had experiences such as these on your path, I want you to know, number one, you're not alone, okay? But it also may help to open up communication lines, or for you to see that you're not crazy. These things do happen, divine intervention. Oh, you know what? I never connected it. The last story, gosh, the last story I was shown years later, because like I said, that was when I was 10 years old, and it ended up inspiring me and pushing me to do some of the things that I ended up doing, such as enlisting in the U.S. Air Force when I came to the U.S. When I was 18, and becoming a law enforcement officer, training, signing up for the special program, training with Army Rangers, and subsequently working with FBI on cases to quote unquote help get bad guys. And when commendations, letters of award, and medals for my work in helping to get bad guys, quote unquote, because um, that's what that experience opened up for me. Is that I then wanted to, like I said, become or do something in some way that would put me in a position of power to stop people from attacking others the way that I had, unfortunately, or fortunately, depends on how you end up looking at these things, because both sides are clearly there, and they've both been clearly there for me, the good and the bad about all experiences. That's just how it is. But yeah, certainly with this one, that's certainly why I became a cop and did all the things that I did before before I was even able to legally drink in this country. So anyhow, yeah, so there you have it. That is, and I was shown, it wasn't until way, way later in life as an adult, in my 40s, that I was shown that that was divine, due to divine intervention, that flipping in the swing and getting knocked out at that moment. Apparently, my angels did that. They were doing that to protect me at that moment, because I was literally um, about to do or say something out of sheer terror that would have put me in a very unfortunate position with this psychopath in the parking lot. He would have seen me, and so anyway. So yeah, so we don't always understand things when we experience them, and it's in our face as to why we're experiencing them, or what could be the possible potential benefit from such experiences. But often we do get to find out why, um, and always we find with divine intervention um, that there was a definite reason, even though at the time it may not have been clear or clearly understood by all involved. But I'm certainly grateful for the experiences I've had with divine intervention in my path. And, I hope you've gotten something out of my stories and my sharing here. And that's it. I mean, thank you very much for joining me. And again, I will share information about different things I've mentioned throughout the video. I don't get money for that. It's just, I'm just sharing information with you for you to check out and look at. And that's it. Until next time, next time, I wish you much love, light, and peace on your journey. And may you always, even whether you know it or not, uh, remain connected to your heart, and to being in connection with spirit and with universal mind, universal consciousness, goddess, in ways that help you stay aligned and see these experiences for what they are. And that's it for now. So much love to you from my heart with a capital H, as always. Till next time.